Picture this golden sands stretching endlessly under the burning sun, the air thick with incense as robed figures kneel before a sleek, watchful feline, her eyes gleaming like polished obsidian. This is no ordinary cat, this is Bastet, the Egyptian goddess of protection, joy, and the mysteries of the night. To the ancient world, animals like her weren't just creatures, they were bridges to the divine, living symbols of powers beyond human understanding. From the soaring eagles of Native American tribes to the serpentine dragons of East Asian lore, civilizations across time and space have woven animals into the very fabric of their myths, rituals, and cosmic beliefs. But why? What hidden truths lie behind humanity's timeless reverence for these creatures? The answer lies in a truth as profound as it is forgotten: animals were more than companions or tools to these ancient cultures. They were mirrors of the universe itself, embodiments of storms and harvests, life and death, chaos and order. Imagine standing in a torch-lit temple, the walls adorned with the hybrid forms of gods: falcon-headed Horus, bull-legged Minotaur, the coyote trickster whispering at the edge of firelight. These weren't just stories, they were maps of reality, ways to explain the unexplainable through the creatures that walked beside humanity. And today, as we uncover the fragments of these lost beliefs, we're not just studying history, we're rediscovering a language of symbols that once connected every human society to the pulse of the natural world. So let's journey together through crumbling temples, across forgotten scrolls, into the heart of rituals where wolves howled as messengers of the gods and ravens carried souls to the afterlife. This is a search for more than trivia. It's a key to understanding how our ancestors saw themselves in the eyes of beasts, and how those sacred bonds still echo in our myths, dreams, and even modern symbols. By the end, you'll never look at a cat's gaze, a bird's flight, or the ripple of a serpent's scales the same way again. The animal totems of lost cultures guard secrets about nature, about us, and it's time to listen to what they've been whispering across the centuries. To understand sacred fauna, we must step beyond the modern idea of animals as mere resources or pets. These creatures were living symbols, threads stitching the human world to something far greater. Take the Hindu cow, for example. To outsiders, it might seem odd that an entire civilization would venerate such a common animal. But in ancient India, the cow wasn't just livestock. It was a walking embodiment of generosity, nurturing the earth like a mother nourishes her child. Its milk fed families, its dung fueled fires, and its very presence symbolized the sacredness of all life. This wasn't superstition, it was a profound recognition of interdependence, where every flick of a cow's tail carried cosmic significance. Then there's the eagle soaring high above the plains of North America. To tribes like the Lakota, its wings weren't just feathers and bone. They were the brushstrokes of the Great Spirit painting messages across the sky. When an eagle circled overhead, it wasn't just hunting, it was carrying prayers between earth and heaven. Warriors wore its feathers not as decoration but as armor, believing its fierce vision and untouchable height could shield them in battle. Across continents and cultures, animals like these became more than flesh and blood, they were vessels. A howling wolf might be the voice of a forest god. A coiled serpent could hold the secrets of rebirth. Even creatures we'd consider mundane today, like beetles or frogs, pulsed with divine energy in the eyes of those who worship them. This reverence reshaped entire civilizations. In Egypt, killing a cat wasn't just a crime, it was sacrilege, punishable by death, because those sleek hunters were the living eyes of Bastet. Meanwhile, in the icy north, Norse shamans wore bear pelts not for warmth alone, but to channel the beast's unstoppable strength during sacred dances. Art, too, became a testament to this bond. From the serpent-tailed Quetzalcoatl murals of Mesoamerica to the lion-faced Sekhmet statues guarding Nile temples, artists didn't just depict animals, they carved and painted portals to the divine. What's astonishing isn't just the depth of these beliefs, but their universality. Whether in the humid jungles where jaguars were worshipped as shape-shifting gods or the windswept steppes where nomads followed herds of sacred reindeer, humanity kept returning to the same truth. Animals were the original teachers, guardians, and mystics. And as we'll soon see, this tapestry of belief stretches even further into realms where dolphins guided souls, where ravens whispered prophecies, and where the line between beast and deity blurred entirely. In the golden glow of temple fires, the gods of ancient Egypt walked with the heads of beasts not as masks, but as revelations. Anubis, the jackal-headed guardian of the dead, didn't just resemble a scavenger of the desert. His sharp muzzle and keen senses embodied the very essence of transition, guiding souls through the shadowy thresholds where humans faltered. And Horus, whose falcon eyes missed nothing, wasn't merely adorned with wings, he was the sky itself, piercing through deception like a raptor diving toward truth. These weren't arbitrary choices. Every curve of a snout, every flick of a tail held meaning. The Egyptians didn't just worship animals, they decoded the universe through them. Consider Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe of the gods. Why a wading bird with a curved beak? To the Nile's people, the ibis was a living quill, probing the mud for hidden wisdom just as Thoth plumbed the depths of cosmic secrets. Even the dung beetle, rolling its precious burden across the sand, became Khepri, the god who pushed the sun across the sky each dawn. This was a theology written in feathers and fur, where divinity revealed itself not in abstract ideals, but in the tangible instincts of creatures. The question lingers, did the Egyptians see the sacred in animals, or did they recognize that the sacred had always worn their forms? The bond went beyond symbolism. In the echoing halls of Saqqara, archaeologists have uncovered catacombs stacked with millions of mummified ibises, cats, even crocodiles, each carefully preserved as an offering to their divine counterparts. Families grieved for their pet cats not just as companions, but as fragments of Bastet's grace, ensuring their passage into the afterlife. A single ibis, wrapped in linen and placed in a clay pot, could carry a plea for wisdom straight to Thoth's ears. This wasn't blind idolatry, it was a conversation, a reciprocity between species where even the smallest creature held a spark of the infinite. Yet Egypt was no outlier. Far to the east, Hindu texts spoke of Ganesha, the elephant-headed remover of obstacles, whose massive ears heard every unspoken prayer. In the Americas, the Jaguar's silent tread made it the perfect vessel for shamans slipping between worlds. The echoes are uncanny, as if every culture, in its own way, glimpsed the same truth, that animals were the original alchemists, transforming the ordinary into the miraculous. And as we'll soon discover, this sacred menagerie stretched even further, to winged serpents that sculpted civilizations and whales that carried entire mythologies on their backs. The deeper we look, the clearer it becomes. These creatures weren't just part of the story, they were the storytellers. Standing before the gates of an ancient Assyrian palace, you wouldn't just see stone, you'd feel the weight of 1,000 eyes staring back. Towering above you, a lamassu, its massive bull's body rooted to the earth, wings spread like a storm, and the bearded face of a king radiating quiet power. These weren't mere decorations, they were the silent sentinels of an empire, carved to stand at every threshold between the human and divine. With one hoof planted in the realm of kings and the other in the world of gods, the lamassu embodied a truth Mesopotamians held sacred. Protection wasn't just about strength, it was about balance. But look closer and the symbolism deepens. Those 5 legs, a masterstroke of ancient artistry. From the front, the lamassu appears resolute, unmoving. But step to the side, and it strides forward, eternally vigilant, forever advancing. This wasn't just clever sculpture, it was a manifesto in stone. Assyrian rulers didn't just want their subjects to see guardians, they wanted them to feel the unshakable motion of imperial power, always watching, always progressing. And the wings, more than decoration, they whispered of the divine right of kings, a reminder that authority didn't just come from the throne, but from the heavens themselves. Yet Mesopotamia's mythic menagerie didn't stop there. In the shadow of Babylon's ziggurats slithered the Mushussu, a creature so bizarre it defied nature: serpent's head, lion's forelegs, eagle's talons, and a tail that could coil around the cosmos. This wasn't just the pet of the god Marduk, it was a walking allegory of Babylon's dominion over land, sky, and the primordial chaos beneath. Where the lamassu stood guard, the Mushussu thrived in motion, its very anatomy a map of Mesopotamian cosmology. The serpent of the underworld, the lion of the earthly realm, the eagle of the celestial sphere, all fused into one unstoppable force. Then there's Humbaba, the monstrous guardian of the cedar forest in the Epic of Gilgamesh. His face a tangle of intestines, his roar a hurricane, yet even this terror wasn't mere villainy. Humbaba was the wild itself, untamed and unyielding, a mirror to civilization's fragile order. When Gilgamesh slew him, it wasn't just a victory, it was a reckoning, a reminder that humanity's conquest of nature came at a cost. What's striking isn't just the creativity of these hybrids, but their shared language across cultures. The lamassu's watchful presence finds echoes in the sphinxes of Egypt and the griffins of Greek myth. The Mushussu's coiled power resurfaces in the Chinese dragon's serpentine grace. Even Humbaba's duality, both protector and destroyer, mirrors the Norse Jormungandr, the world serpent who bites his own tail. These weren't coincidences, they were fragments of a forgotten dialogue where civilizations reached for the same truths through the creatures they sculpted, worshipped, and feared. And as we'll see next, this conversation spanned beyond the earthly realm, into the skies where thunderbirds ruled and the depths where leviathans slept. High on the Acropolis, where olive trees whispered in the Aegean breeze, a single creature perched on Athena's shoulder, her sacred owl, eyes like polished moonstones, seeing through the veil of ignorance. To the Greeks, this wasn't just a bird, it was wisdom incarnate, a feathered paradox that thrived in darkness yet revealed truths brighter than daylight. Why an owl? Because the Greeks didn't just admire animals, they decoded the cosmos through them. The owl's nocturnal vigilance mirrored Athena's clarity in chaos, its silent flight a lesson in discretion, its unblinking gaze the very essence of philosophy. Even Athens' coins bore its image as if to say, true wealth wasn't silver but insight. Then there was Python, the primordial serpent coiled around Delphi's heart, its breath thick with prophecy until Apollo's arrows pierced its scales. This wasn't merely a monster's defeat, it was the triumph of light over chaos, reason over instinct. Yet even in death, Python's essence lingered. Apollo claimed Delphi as his oracle, weaving the serpent's ancient wisdom into his own. The Greeks understood something profound. To conquer nature wasn't to erase it, but to transform it. The serpent's cunning became the god's foresight, its primal energy channeled into divine inspiration. But Greek mythology's genius lay in its refusal to simplify. Foxes weren't just sly, they were teachers of adaptability, like the trickster god Hermes in disguise. Dogs weren't merely loyal, they were psychopomps guiding souls across the Styx with Cerberus's triple vigilance. Even the lowly tortoise, hollowed into Lyre's frame, sang of creativity born from resilience. Every creature held a duality. The bull could be Poseidon's wrath in one tale and Zeus's disguise in another, a reminder that nature's power was neither good nor evil, but what humanity made of it. Nowhere was this ambiguity more striking than in beings like the Minotaur, trapped between man and beast. His labyrinth wasn't just a prison, it was a mirror, forcing Athens to confront its own monstrous hunger for sacrificial youth. And the centaurs, half human, half horse, they embodied the eternal struggle between civilization and instinct. Their drunken brawls at weddings a warning. Without balance, even wisdom could trample itself. So were these stories mere metaphors, to the farmer leaving offerings to Artemis's stags, or the sailor praying to dolphin riding Poseidon. The line between symbol and reality blurred. These beasts weren't just allegories, they were bridges, making the intangible tangible. And as we'll soon see, when the northern winds carry us to Norse realms, the animals take on even fiercer forms: wolves that swallow the sun, serpents that encircle the earth, and eight-legged steeds galloping between worlds. The Greeks may have sculpted their beasts with poetic grace, but the Norse would carve theirs with the edge of an axe. In the frozen halls of Asgard, where the world tree Yggdrasil groaned under the weight of 9 realms, 2 ravens perched on a throne of spears, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory, their black feathers glistening like oiled iron. Every dawn they took flight, weaving through mist and battlefield alike, returning to whisper secrets into Odin's ear. To the Vikings, these weren't just birds, they were the restless pulse of knowledge itself. A raven circling overhead before a raid wasn't an omen of death, it was the Allfather's gaze, weighing the worth of warriors. And when feasts ended, the choicest cuts of meat were left for them, not out of superstition, but as tribute to the very mechanics of the mind. Without memory, what are we? Without thought, how do we conquer? Yet for all their reverence, the Norse understood balance. If ravens symbolized the clarity of strategy, Fenrir the wolf embodied its opposite, the chaos no foresight could tame. Chained by magic ropes, his saliva forming a river of dread, this monstrous offspring of Loki wasn't just a beast, he was destiny itself, fated to break free at Ragnarök and swallow the sun. Here lies the Viking paradox: they worshipped what they feared. Wolf pelts draped over shields weren't just camouflage, they were invocations of Fenrir's fury, a way to channel destruction before it consumed them. Even Tyr, god of justice, sacrificed his hand to bind the beast, a reminder that some truths demand payment in blood. But Yggdrasil's roots held quieter guardians. Among its branches grazed 4 stags, Dane, Dvalin, Duneyr, and Durathra, gnawing eternally at the tree's leaves. Unlike Fenrir's ravenous jaws, their grazing sustained the cosmos, their antlers cradling dewdrops that became rivers, their breath the sigh of seasons turning. Where the wolf and raven spoke of war and wisdom, the stags whispered of cycles, of life persisting even in the shadow of doom. This duality carved the Viking soul. To sail into battle with a raven banner was to embrace fate, knowing Odin's birds might feast on your corpse tomorrow. To wear a wolfskin was to court the very force that would end the world, not in defiance but in grim alliance. The Norse didn't fight their myths, they lived them, their poetry etching Fenrir's snarl and the stag's quiet steps into the same stanza. And as the longships reached distant shores, this dance of opposites echoed elsewhere in the Celtic groves where stags were kings and wolves were prophets, where crows carried souls and serpents guarded sacred springs. The Vikings may have carved their symbols with runes, but the earth itself had been writing them long before, in the tracks of wolves and the flight of ravens, in the rhythm of teeth against leaves and the hush before the storm. Beneath the swirling mists of an Irish river, where hazel trees bent low over rushing waters, swam a creature flecked with the gold of hidden knowledge, the salmon of wisdom. This wasn't just a fish, it was the keeper of an ancient secret, having devoured the sacred hazelnuts that fell from the branches of the world tree itself. To catch it meant tasting omniscience, as the hero Fionn Mac Cumhale discovered when he burned his thumb on its flesh and gained the power to see all truths. But the salmon's brilliance wasn't just a prize, it was a lesson. In Celtic lore, rivers were the veins of the earth, and their creatures, like this luminous fish, carried the currents of inspiration between realms. Yet the Celts' new wisdom wore many skins. High above battlefields, the Morrigan's crows wheeled like living shadows, their cries not mere scavenging but prophecy. Where the salmon offered enlightenment, these birds whispered of fate's sharp edge. To see one perched on a standing stone wasn't an omen of death, it was an invitation to prepare, to sharpen both sword and wit. Even the horse goddess Epona, her mane braided with starlight, bridged worlds. Roman soldiers might have worshipped her as a protector of cavalry, but to the Celts, she was the galloping rhythm between life and the afterlife, her hooves drumming the path souls would follow. Then there were the selkies, slipping between seal skins and human forms as easily as twilight shifts to dawn. These shape-shifters weren't just fantastical, they embodied the Celtic reverence for fluidity. A fisherman might marry a selkie woman, but her longing for the sea would always call her home. Was this a warning about the boundaries of love, or a metaphor for the soul's untamable wildness? Perhaps these stories held practical keys too. The salmon's journey upstream mirrored perseverance, the Morrigan's crows taught vigilance, the selkie's dual nature reflected adaptability. Even Epona's gallop could be read as a survival tactic, speed as salvation. And when we listen closely, echoes resound beyond the misty hills. Just as the salmon swam through Celtic verses, the Navajo revere the coyote as a trickster teacher, and the Pacific Northwest tribes honor the orca as a guardian of ancestral memory. The language of sacred fauna, it seems, has always been a dialect of necessity, whispered in fur and feather and fin. But the Celts left us one more clue: their animals were never just symbols. They were guides demanding not worship but attention. To follow the salmon was to seek knowledge, to heed the crow was to face truth, to chase the selkie was to confront the untamed self. And as we turn our gaze across the Atlantic, we'll find another culture that wove beasts into the fabric of the sacred, where eagles carved the sky into prayers and buffalo shook the earth with thunder. Across the Great Plains, where the horizon melts into endless grass, the thunder of hooves shakes the earth, not as chaos but as prayer. The Lakota buffalo isn't just an animal, it's a walking cathedral of abundance, its massive frame a living lesson in generosity. Every part of the beast served the people, meat for nourishment, hide for warmth, bones for tools, even sinew for thread. But deeper than utility lay reverence. The buffalo's cyclical return each spring wasn't just migration. It was the earth's heartbeat, a promise that sacrifice and renewal were intertwined. When hunters offered tobacco before a kill, they weren't asking permission, they were acknowledging kinship, as if to say, your body will become our breath, and our gratitude will guide you home. Yet where the buffalo embodies solemnity, the coyote dances in the margins, paws dusty with mischief. To the Navajo and Plains tribes, this trickster isn't just a prankster, he's the universe's sharpest teacher, unraveling arrogance with laughter. In one tale, he tricks bears out of their meat by dividing the spoils unfairly, only to reveal gluttony's folly. In another, he steals fire for humanity, singeing his tail in the process, explaining his wary grin. The coyote's genius lies in his duality. He's fool and philosopher, chaos and catalyst. Where the buffalo gifts sustenance, the coyote gifts perspective, reminding us that wisdom often wears a ragged coat. These spirits didn't just wander myths, they shaped identities. Among the Iroquois, turtle clans carried the weight of creation itself, their shells mirroring the earth's curve on the great turtle's back. Bear clans channeled healing and introspection, hibernation's quiet power flowing through their rituals. To belong to a totem wasn't symbolic, it was ancestral. A child born into the eagle clan didn't just admire the bird, they inherited its vision, its responsibility to soar above pettiness and protect the community's horizon. But how did one meet their spirit guide? Through the vision quest, a trial of solitude and starvation where the physical world grew thin. A Lakota youth might crouch in a pit for days, waiting as hunger sharpened the senses until finally, through sweat-blurred eyes, a wolf might pad forward. Not to hunt but to speak, imparting endurance or loyalty as lifelong lessons. These encounters weren't hallucinations, they were translations, the animal's essence distilled into a name, a song, a path. Nowhere is the balance of power and humility clearer than in Cherokee lore. The thunderbird, wings cracking the sky with storms, shares the world with the mouse who, despite its size, once won the gift of fire by outwitting the sun. The lesson, strength wears many forms. A feather isn't just lighter than a talon, it's mightier in the right wind. Today, these beliefs aren't relics. At powwows, eagle feathers still honor valor. Environmentalists invoke the buffalo's reciprocity when fighting for land rights. Even urban natives wear totem pins as quiet resistance, whispering, "We remember." And in shamanic drums, the heartbeat persists, a rhythm older than borders, calling the spirits back, not as myths but as mentors, not as symbols but as family. The drum's pulse quickens now, leading us further into the jungles where jaguars step between worlds, and the tundra where reindeer carry the northern lights on their antlers. The animals are waiting, and they have so much left to say. Deep in the Siberian tundra, where the northern lights ripple like celestial rivers, a shaman's drumbeat syncs with the pulse of reindeer hooves on frozen earth. To the Nenets people, these aren't just animals, they're bridges to the spirit world, their antlers branching like neural pathways between realms. When a shaman slips into trance, it's often a reindeer who carries them not as a mount, but as a living compass, navigating the unseen layers of existence. Their white coats aren't mere camouflage, they're mirrors of the snow-blind landscape, reflecting the purity needed to commune with ancestors. And when a herd circles a sick child, their breath steaming in the cold, it's not instinct, it's ceremony. The Nenets say reindeer absorb suffering, their bodies taking on human pain to dissolve it into the endless white. Now shift to the Amazon's emerald shadows, where jaguars move like liquid night. For the Shipibo healers, this predator isn't just a hunter, it's a surgeon of souls. Under ayahuasca's grip, shamans report becoming jaguars, their hands morphing into paws as they stalk through visions to extract spiritual infections. The vine's psychedelic brew doesn't just hallucinate animals, it reveals them, peeling back reality's veneer to show a world where anacondas sing healing chants and hummingbirds stitch wounds with needle-thin beaks. Western science calls this pharmacologically induced synesthesia, but to the Shipibo, it's simple truth. Medicine is the animal, and the animal is the medicine. This convergence of flesh and vision isn't confined to antiquity. In neon-lit Los Angeles, neo-shamanic circles brew ceremonial cacao instead of ayahuasca, yet the messengers remain startlingly familiar. Urbanites describe eagle visions lifting them from depression, or wolf spirits rekindling buried courage. Skeptics dismiss these as subconscious archetypes, neurons firing Jungian symbols. But the shamans of Tuva would counter, if a spirit guide heals, does its origin matter? Their ancestors carved drums with reindeer while chanting to wolves, insisting that animals don't just symbolize power, they are power, as tangible as a heartbeat or a breath. Perhaps the sharpest insight comes from the Sami of Scandinavia, whose shamans knowingly negotiated with reindeer spirits to control weather. Modern meteorology scoffs, yet ethnographers documented ceremonies where storms split around ritually marked herds. Coincidence, the Sami would shrug. When a culture lives entwined with animals for millennia, the line between natural and supernatural blurs. A reindeer's sneeze predicts snowfall not by magic, but because its body reads the air's secrets before any instrument. As we cross into East Asia, the questions shift. Tibetan Buddhists visualize snow lions as embodiments of fearless joy. Japanese kitsune foxes guard shrine gates with otherworldly wit. Here, animals aren't just guides, they're philosophies on pause, their very existence koans probing reality's edges. From Siberian tundras to Tokyo temples, one thread endures. When humanity listens, the animals speak. And what they're saying might just rewrite what we think we know. High above the forbidden city's vermilion walls, where golden roof tiles catch the dawn, a 5-clawed dragon coils, its scales alive with the fire of yang energy. This isn't the fire-breathing terror of Western tales, but a cosmic architect, weaving rivers with its tail and summoning rain with its breath. To the Chinese emperors who wore its image, the dragon wasn't just power incarnate. It was the very rhythm of creation, Yang's unyielding force balanced only by its eternal counterpart, the phoenix. Perched on silken robes beside the dragon, this crimson bird embodied Yin's grace, its cyclical rebirth a testament to harmony's delicate dance. Together, they weren't just symbols, they were the universe's breath, in and out, rise and fall. Yet China's celestial menagerie held gentler wonders too. Enter the Kilin, a chimera so peaceful its hooves refused to crush grass, its antlers soft as mist. Spotting one heralded an era of wisdom, like the legendary appearance before Confucius' birth. Unlike the dragon's tempest or the phoenix's flames, the Kilin radiated quiet benevolence, its very existence a rebuke to chaos. And then there was the tiger, its stripes like cracked lightning, guarding temple gates and children's pillows alike. Not just a predator, but a protector, its roar scattering malevolent spirits long before it echoed through the mountains. But these beings weren't distant legends, they shaped everyday life. The zodiac's 12 animals spun personal destinies like silk threads, a rat's cleverness, an ox's steadfastness, a snake's intuition. Farmers timed plantings by the tiger's spring awakening. Lovers avoided marrying in goat years for fear of fragility. Even the sun had its guardian, the 3-legged crow, whose golden wings carried the day across the sky. Some said the extra limb symbolized celestial perfection, others that it balanced heaven's weight. Either way, its flight was a daily reminder. Even the cosmos relied on creatures. Yet for all the dragon's imperial majesty, folk tales whispered of tricksters closer to earth, the Huli Jing, fox spirits who blurred the line between mischief and enlightenment. A Huli Jing might curse a boastful scholar by revealing his lies, or reward a kind woodcutter with prophetic dreams. Unlike the untouchable dragon, these foxes walked among mortals, their 9 tails tallying centuries of hard-won wisdom. And just across the sea, Japan's own myths waited where moon rabbits pounded mochai and kappa demons challenged passers-by to sumo matches. But that's another realm entirely, one where cranes folded fate into origami and dragons wore seaweed beards. For now, the celestial creatures of China remind us, in every flick of a tiger's tail, every Kilin's footfall, the world whispers its oldest secrets if we know how to listen. In the crimson glow of a Shinto shrine's lanterns, a flash of white fur darts between the torii gates, not quite fox, not quite woman, but something shimmering in between. Kitsune, the shape-shifting foxes of Japanese lore, are creatures of delicious contradiction. To some, they're divine messengers of Inari, the rice god, their statues adorned with red bibs like tiny priests. Their tails, sometimes one, sometimes 9, fan out like sacred scrolls, each additional appendage marking a century of wisdom. But cross one, and those same tails might weave illusions to humiliate you. A lavish feast turning to rotten leaves, a lover's face melting into a muzzle. This duality isn't accidental. In a culture where Shinto's animism and Buddhism's karma intertwined, the kitsune became living paradoxes, tricksters who taught morality, wild spirits who guarded harvests, creatures who could bless a merchant's ledger or curse a liar's tongue with equal ease. Then there are the Tengu, lurking in cedar-scented mountain mist, with faces like scarlet-skinned goblins and wings as dark as charred timber. These crow-like demons were originally harbingers of war. But somewhere between the Heian period and medieval scrolls, they transformed. Their long noses, once symbols of arrogance, became signs of otherworldly wisdom. Mountain ascetics sought them out for martial secrets, and legends tell of Tengu rescuing lost children, provided they showed respect. Like the kitsune, they straddled worlds, feared yet revered, destructive yet enlightening. Their feathers ruffled the boundary between Buddhist discipline and Shinto's untamed wilderness, a reminder that even the divine has sharp edges. But why foxes? Why do their paws pad through so much of Asia's mythic soil? The answer might lie in the fields. Foxes were both pest and protector, stealing chickens yet controlling rats that threatened rice stores. Their eerie cries at dusk sounded like ghostly women, their intelligence uncanny. Farmers left offerings to appease them. Poets penned verses about their otherworldly beauty. And when Buddhism arrived, the kitsune absorbed its teachings too. Some tales speak of foxes attaining enlightenment, their tricks revealed as skillful means to guide humans toward truth. Yet animals in Japanese folklore don't just teach, they avenge. Take the crab in the tale of The Monkey and the Crab, who recruits allies to punish a greedy monkey for murder. It's not just a children's story, it's a cosmic balancing act where even the smallest creature can summon justice. This thread of animals as moral arbiters weaves from Kyoto's tea houses to the African savanna where the next chapter waits. There, the jackal's laugh carries different secrets, the spider spins wisdom, and the lion's roar shakes the stars themselves. Under the baobab's gnarled branches, where firelight dances on eager faces, a whisper slithers through the crowd. Anansi is spinning again. No ordinary spider, this trickster weaves more than webs. He spins the very fabric of stories themselves. To the Akan people of Ghana, Anansi isn't just a character. He's the original bard, Chinese letter architect of folklore who taught humanity that wisdom often hides in laughter. Watch him in one tale, dangling from a thread as he tricks the sky god Nyame into surrendering all stories to the world below, or grin as he accidentally drops a pot of wisdom into the ocean, scattering knowledge like seashells for anyone to gather. His 8 legs aren't just limbs, they're the threads connecting past to present, proving that even the smallest creature can outwit the heavens. But shift your gaze south to Zululand, where the python's sinuous bulk carries a different power. Here, the great serpent isn't feared, it's revered as the bringer of rain, its scales shimmering like water under the sun. When drought parches the land, elders whisper to it, offering sacrifices of fresh milk, believing its coiled body channels the storms. The python doesn't just slither, it sings the rivers into being, its very presence a covenant between earth and sky. Meanwhile, on the savannas of Mali and Ethiopia, another ruler pads through the golden grass. The lion's roar isn't just a sound, it's a coronation. Sundiata Keita, founder of the Mali Empire, was said to have the lion's spirit in his veins, his strength and justice mirroring the animal's noble ferocity. In Ethiopia, the Lion of Judah still emblazons shields and scepters, a living emblem of imperial lineage stretching back to King Solomon. Unlike European crests where lions snarl in battle, African depictions often show them regally poised, not just conquerors but stewards, their manes like crowns woven by the land itself. Yet perhaps the most profound mystery uncoils among the Dogon of Mali. Their cosmic serpent Nomo isn't bound to the earth. It's a celestial architect descending from the stars to sculpt humanity from clay. Split into 4 pairs of twins, Nomo embodies duality, water and fire, chaos and order. Its serpentine form a helix of creation. When Dogon elders trace its path in the sand, they're not drawing a myth, they're mapping the universe's DNA. Now travel from the rainforest's emerald shadows to the desert's furnace breath, where the scarab beetle rolls its precious dung ball. Ancient Egyptians saw Khepri pushing the sun. But to the Tuareg nomads, the scarab's resilience mirrors their own, a master of survival in a land that forgives no weakness. Compare this to the leopard of the Congo, its rosettes like dappled sunlight, a shapeshifter slipping between hunter and deity in local lore. The contrast is stark. Desert symbols thrive on tenacity, while rainforest creatures pulse with metamorphosis. These animals don't just populate tales, they're oral histories, living archives. Griots still chant of the lion's treaties between tribes, or the hyena's lessons about greed. Every time a grandmother imitates Anansi's squeaky voice for laughing children, she's passing down more than entertainment. She's threading another stitch in culture's unbroken tapestry. And now, as the Harmattan wind carries us across the waves, new voices rise from the Pacific where sharks guide lost canoes and octopuses pull entire islands from the deep. The animals are speaking. Will we listen beneath the ochre cliffs of Australia's Arnhem Land, where the air shimmers with heat, an ancient force slumbers in the red dust, the rainbow serpent? More than a myth, this colossal being carved the world itself, its sinuous body pressing riverbeds into the earth as it traveled, its rainbow scales painting the sky after monsoons. To the Aboriginal peoples, every waterhole it created became a sacred library, holding not just water but stories, laws, and warnings. When elders speak of the serpent's awakening during dreamtime ceremonies, they're not recounting fantasy. They're mapping the land's DNA, where every twist of a canyon or curve of a billabong whispers its name. Now leap across the Tasman Sea to New Zealand, where the Maori's taniwha lurk in river bends and coastal caves. These water dragons aren't monsters, they're guardians, as complex as the currents they inhabit. Some taniwha guide canoes to safety, like Pania of the Reef, whose luminous form still watches over Napier's shores. Others, like the fiery-tailed Tuharangi, demand respect, disturb their waters without offering, and whirlpools might swallow the careless. The Maori don't just believe in taniwha, they negotiate with them, embedding these beings into land disputes and environmental protections even today. A proposed highway once diverted to avoid a taniwha's domain, proving these legends still shape concrete and steel. Meanwhile, in Hawaii's cobalt depths, the shark god Kamoholi glides. Brother to the volcano goddess Pele, he doesn't just rule the ocean. He is the ocean, his dorsal fin cutting through waves and myths alike. Fishermen leave offerings of kava root, knowing he can lead them to bounty or drag them into the abyss. His power birthed the Omakua tradition, where families honor ancestral spirits in animal form. To harm one's Omakua, be it owl, turtle, or shark, is to sever a lifeline to the past. But how did these cultures decode nature's signs so precisely? Polynesian navigators didn't just sail, they conversed with the wind and stars through animal intermediaries. The frigate bird's flight path became a compass. Its sudden dive marked invisible currents. Schools of tuna signaled nearby land, while the absence of birds warned of barren seas. This wasn't superstition, it was science refined over millennia, where ecology and spirituality fused. And woe to those who broke tapu, the sacred laws governing species. In Fiji, touching a crested iguana without ritual cleansing could invite catastrophe. Salmon villages forbade hunting fruit bats during nesting season, not just to preserve food sources, but because the bats were seen as stewards of the forest. These taboos weren't arbitrary, they encoded sustainability, wrapping survival strategies in divine mystery. The lesson hums beneath it all. From the rainbow serpent's rivers to Kamohole's tides, Oceania's myths didn't just explain nature, they negotiated with it. Now, as we cross the Pacific's vast expanse, the Americas await, where jaguars shaped empires and feathered serpents built cities. The animals are listening. And their stories are far from over. At the heart of Tenochtitlan's towering temples, where incense curled toward the sun, a paradox slithered through Aztec cosmology. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, whose emerald plumes shimmered with the duality of creation itself. This was no mere god of wind. He was the architect of civilization, gifting humanity with maize, books, and the sacred calendar. His very form, a serpent's body cloaked in quetzal feathers, symbolized the marriage of earth and sky, wisdom coiled beneath instinct. When priests donned his likeness during ceremonies, they weren't just honoring a deity, they were channeling the tension between raw power and enlightened order. But Quetzalcoatl's legacy held a shadow. His mythic exile, promising to return one day from the east, would haunt the Aztecs when Spanish sails appeared on the horizon, their crosses mirroring his prophesied sign. Was this coincidence, or had the plumed serpent story always been a mirror held up to fate? Yet where Quetzalcoatl soared, the jaguar prowled. Tepayolotl, the heart of the mountain, wasn't just a god of caves and echoes. He was the night's pulse, his spotted coat a map of the stars. Aztec warriors aspired to his stealth, but shamans feared him too. His growl could shake souls loose from bodies during vision quests. In the pitch-black depths of Tezcatlipoca's shrines, jaguar skins draped over altars weren't trophies, they were portals. To where one was to step between worlds, where time bent like a jungle vine and ancestors whispered through the beast's amber eyes. The irony, Quetzalcoatl's feathers ruled the day, but the jaguar's dominion was the liminal, the moment between heartbeats, the breath before a sacrifice. High above these earthly struggles, the golden eagle circled Huitzilopochtli's chosen warrior, his talons slick with the sun's fire. Aztec youths trained to become eagle knights didn't just emulate the bird, they became it, their feathered regalia transforming them into celestial hunters. When an eagle snatched a serpent in its claws, the image now emblazoned on Mexico's flag, it wasn't just predation, it was cosmic order asserting itself. Yet even this symbol held layers. Some codices show eagles with human faces, suggesting warriors didn't ascend to the god's realm, they brought it down to earth. Then there's the axolotl, that eternal lava gliding through Xochimilco's canals. Unlike other creatures, it never matured, its gilled adolescence a metaphor for resilience. Legend claims the axolotl was the last incarnation of Xolotl, Quetzalcoatl's twin, who transformed to escape sacrifice. In its regenerative limbs, the Aztecs saw a promise. Even when torn apart, life could stitch itself back together. Modern scientists now study its DNA for clues to human healing, proving some myths outpaced time. Did the Aztecs read their doom in animal signs? When Moctezuma Roman II spotted an eagle pinned by a falcon, or when caged jaguars reportedly wept before Cortés' arrival, were these omens or hindsight's cruel poetry? The Maya, whose Kukulkan shared Quetzalcoatl's plumage, might have nodded knowingly. Their calendars, too, pulsed with creature symbols, each carrying prophecies as sharp as obsidian. Perhaps these civilizations understood something we've forgotten, that animals don't just share our world, they script its hidden narratives, their lives inked in the margins of history. Deep in the emerald embrace of a Maya jungle, the guttural roar of howler monkeys doesn't just break the dawn, it shakes the cosmos. To the ancient Maya, these weren't just noisy primates. They were the scribes of the gods, their calls inscribing divine messages onto the parchment of the wind. Hun Bats and Hun Chovan, the monkey scribe gods, held paintbrushes of vines, their fingers stained with the ink of creation as they painted the stars into existence. In Maya codices, they're often depicted crouched over bark paper scrolls, their long tails curling like commas in celestial sentences. But here's the twist, these monkeys weren't just artists, they were cautionary tales. The Popol Vuh reveals they were once arrogant brothers, transformed into primates as punishment for mocking the hero twins. Their genius came with a price, eternal service as record keepers, a reminder that knowledge without humility is just noise echoing through the trees. Now descend into the bat-infested caverns of Xibalba, the Maya underworld, where the air thrums with leathery wings. Camazotz, the death bat, wasn't just a monster, it was the embodiment of sacrifice, its razor-sharp snout symbolizing the fine edge between life and oblivion. In one harrowing tale, this creature decapitates a hero twin, only for his brother to resurrect him through cunning and ritual. The bat's lesson wasn't mere terror. It distilled the Maya's unflinching acceptance of death as a cyclical force. Modern excavations reveal bat effigies in royal tombs, their wings spread like cloaks over the deceased guides, not grim reapers, shepherding souls through the 9 layers of darkness toward rebirth. Then there's the Jaguar, its dappled coat a living paradox. By day, it was Kinish Ahau, the sun god's earthly avatar, its golden eyes reflecting the noontime blaze. By night, it became the lord of the underworld, slipping between realms as effortlessly as shadows lengthen and retreat. Maya kings draped themselves in jaguar pelts not just to project power, but to channel this duality, ruling with the sun's clarity while wielding the night's secrets. Even their name for the jaguar, Balam, doubled as a title for shamans, those who could walk the knife's edge between seen and unseen. At the center of it all stood the ceiba tree, its roots clawing into Xibalba while its branches cradled the heavens. This wasn't just a plant, it was a cosmic axis humming with animal spirits. Howler monkeys chattered in its crown like scribes, updating celestial records. Bats nested in its hollows, their whispers carrying underworld knowledge upward, and around its trunk coiled the feathered serpent, Kukulkan, weaving together all realms in a single, sinuous spiral. The Popol Vuh's hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, mastered these animal transformations, becoming fish to evade enemies, morphing into ants to infiltrate the underworld. Their final act, rising as the sun and moon, their animal allies forever etched into the sky. This wasn't fantasy, it was a roadmap. The Maya calendar's Nagual system assigned each person an animal spirit at birth, a bat for strategists, a jaguar for leaders, a hummingbird for lovers. Your Nagual didn't just describe you, it destined you, linking your path to the rhythms of wings, claws, and stars. As the ceiba's shadow stretches southward, we cross into the Andes, where condors carry prayers to mountain gods and pumas stalk the stone corridors of Machu Picchu. The animals are waiting, and their stories are only beginning. High above the jagged peaks of the Andes, where the air thins to a razor's edge, the condor's shadow sweeps across the stone temples of the Inca like a moving prophecy. This wasn't just a bird, it was the Apu Kunta, the sky's divine messenger, its wingspan stretching between the mortal world and Honan Pacha, the celestial realm. Inca emperors wore its feathers as crowns, not just for majesty, but to channel its vision soaring above human strife to glimpse the god's design. When a condor circled over Cusco, priests read its flight patterns like sacred text, interpreting every dip and rise as communiques from Intai, the sun god. But the condor's power wasn't just symbolic. Its ability to ascend where humans suffocate made it a living bridge between earth and heaven. Its very existence proof that the divine was reachable, if only through the right intermediaries. Now descend to the labyrinthine streets of Machu Picchu, where puma-shaped stones still guard silent plazas. The puma punku was the Inca's earthbound counterpart to the condor, its stealth and strength embodying K-Pacha, the middle world of the living. Unlike the Jaguar of Mesoamerica, which ruled the underworld, the Inca puma was a pragmatic guardian. Its likeness was carved into fortress walls, its crouching form a warning to enemies. Warriors trained in its image, learning to strike with precision and vanish into the terrain like shadows. Yet the puma's role went beyond warfare. It symbolized the Inca's mastery of agriculture, its territorial precision mirrored in the empire's terraced fields, each level a claw mark of control on the mountainside. But the true marvel of Inca cosmology lay in its tripartite harmony: condor, puma, and the often overlooked serpent, Amaru. While the condor ruled the skies and the puma the earth, the serpent coiled through Uku Pacha, the underworld, its sinuous body tracing the veins of rivers and lava flows. Unlike the feared feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl, Amaru was neither god nor villain, but a transformative force. Earthquakes were its movements, caves its nostrils exhaling subterranean secrets. When shamans sought visions, they drank ayahuasca to ride Amaru's back through the layers of existence, returning with insights as sharp as fangs. This sacred trinity wasn't just philosophy, it was etched into daily life. Inca textiles wove condor feathers into tunics reserved for high priests, their geometric patterns encoding celestial maps. Puma pelts draped over oracle stones absorbed the warmth of sacrificed llamas, their blood channeling messages to the spirit world. And in Coricancha's golden halls, serpent motifs slithered along walls, their scales catching torchlight to animate the shadows. Even children learned the hierarchy early: condor for wisdom, puma for action, serpent for rebirth, a trifecta as balanced as the empire's famed suspension bridges. Yet among these revered creatures, the llama carried the heaviest burden. Its soft wool clothed the empire, its dung fertilized crops, but its most sacred duty was as the ultimate sacrificial offering. During Capacocha ceremonies, flawless white llamas were led to mountain summits, their throats slit so their breath could carry prayers to the gods. Archaeologists still find their mummified remains frozen at dizzying altitudes, their curled limbs preserved in eternal supplication. The irony: these sacrifices were acts of reciprocity. Llamas weren't just killed, they were returned, their lives exchanged for divine favor in a cosmic barter system. Then there's the guinea pig, or kai, a humble creature with an extraordinary role. Priests read their entrails like oracle texts, their tiny organs mapping coming droughts or wars. Households kept them as living alarm systems. If a kai screeched at night, evil spirits were near. Even today, Andean healers use them in limpia rituals, rubbing their bodies over patients to absorb illness before ritually dissecting them. To outsiders, it might seem bizarre, but to the Inca, the kai's sensitivity made it the ultimate spiritual antenna. When the Spanish arrived with their crosses and cannons, they dismissed these beliefs as pagan nonsense. Chronicles written by conquistadors reduced condor worship to devilry and mocked the kai rituals, but hidden beneath Catholic conversions, the animal symbiosis persisted. Colonial churches were built over puma-shaped stones. Indigenous weavers secretly stitched serpent motifs into Christian tapestries. The condor endured, too recast as a symbol of rebellion, its image smuggled into revolutionary flags. What's astonishing isn't just the resilience of these beliefs, but their echoes across oceans. The Inca's condor mirrors the Norse ravens of Odin. Their trinity finds cousins in the Hindu Trimurti or the Christian Holy Trinity. Even the Kai's divination parallels African traditions of reading goat entrails. Perhaps these threads hint at something deeper, that humanity, no matter the continent, has always sought the divine in the creatures that walk, fly, and slither beside us. And now, as the Andes fade into the horizon, another mystery calls from the frozen north, where reindeer carry shamans to the spirit world and wolves sing to the moon. The animals are still speaking, and their language is older than borders, older than empires, older than time itself. From the icy tundras of Siberia to the sun-baked temples of Mesoamerica, one thread weaves through humanity's myths, the serpent coiled in paradox. In the Norse Eddas, Jormungandr circles the world, tail in mouth, embodying the endless cycle of destruction and renewal. The Hindu Kundalini slumbers at the base of the spine, a dormant force that, when awakened, spirals upward like a vine of fire. And in the dream time of Australia's Aboriginal peoples, the rainbow serpent sculpts rivers with its belly, birthing landscapes from its movements. Why do cultures separated by continents and millennia fixate on this limbless creature? Because the serpent is the ultimate shapeshifter, shedding its skin as effortlessly as the cosmos reinvents itself, simultaneously a symbol of poison and medicine, chaos and rebirth. Its very biology defies categorization, legless yet agile, silent yet deadly, grounded yet undulating skyward in the worship of countless civilizations. Now contrast this with the eagle, its wings slicing through the same skies where serpents once flew as dragons. For the Romans, the eagle clutched Jupiter's lightning bolts. For the indigenous peoples of North America, it carried prayers to the Great Spirit. Even in ancient Persia, the simurgh, a mythical bird of wisdom nested in the tree of knowledge, its feathers dripping with the elixir of immortality. Birds, with their hollow bones and skyward yearning, became universal shorthand for the soul's journey. The Egyptian Ba, depicted as a human-headed falcon, flitted between tombs and the afterlife. Celtic myths spoke of Rhiannon's enchanted birds, whose songs could wake the dead or lull the living into eternal slumber. Whether as psychopomps or celestial messengers, birds transcended their physical forms to become metaphors for liberation, creatures unshackled from Earth's gravitational pull, just as the spirit longs to be free. Predators, too, stalk the collective unconscious with startling consistency. The lion's mane flares in Mesopotamian reliefs and on the coats of arms of medieval Europe, not just as a symbol of strength but of sovereignty, the untamed force harnessed by kings. Wolves, meanwhile, occupy a liminal space. The Fenrir of Norse myth is a devourer of worlds, yet Romulus and Remus owe their lives to a she-wolf's milk. This duality reflects humanity's fraught relationship with predators. We admire their power even as we fear it, projecting our own dominance and vulnerabilities onto their forms. A wolf isn't just a wolf, it's the untamed wilderness we've both conquered and mourned. Prey animals whisper a different truth. The deer, with its wide, liquid eyes, appears in Christian iconography as a symbol of piety. St. Hubert's stag, bearing a crucifix between its antlers. In Japanese Shinto, the Sika deer is a sacred messenger of the gods, wandering Nara's temples with an otherworldly calm. Rabbits, whether as the Aztecs' moon-bound pulp gods or the trickster Birra rabbit of African-American folklore, embody quick wit and fertility, their rapid breeding a testament to life's tenacity. Vulnerability in these stories isn't weakness, it's a different kind of survival strategy, one that prizes agility and proliferation over brute force. Color further layers these archetypes. White animals from the pale buffalo calves revered by the Lakota to the celestial steeds of Hindu sun gods signal purity or divine favor. Black creatures like the ominous ravens of European folklore or the shadowy jaguars stalking Mayan underworlds often portend transformation or death. But these interpretations aren't universal. In China, the black tortoise is a guardian of the north, its dark shell a shield against chaos. Meanwhile, the red birds, phoenixes, cardinals, scarlet ibises burn with the hues of sacrifice and renewal, their plumage a visual shorthand for the lifeblood that sustains both kingdoms and cosmos. So where do these patterns originate? Jungian psychology might argue for innate archetypes buried in the collective unconscious hardwired responses to predators, prey, and the primal contrast of light and dark. Anthropologists counter that shared ecosystems led to similar observations. Serpents do shed their skins, birds do defy gravity, lions do command their prides. But perhaps the most compelling explanation lies in the animals themselves. A wolf's howl feels ancestral, a raven's intelligence seems uncanny because they are. These creatures shared our evolutionary journey, their traits shaping our stories as surely as our tools shaped their survival. Which brings us to the hybrids, the griffins, centaurs, and feathered serpents that defy taxonomy. These chimeras aren't just flights of fancy, they're the ultimate synthesis of humanity's animal dialogues. The Egyptian Sphinx, lion-bodied and human-faced, guards the threshold between instinct and reason. The Hindu Ganesha, with his elephant head and rotund belly, merges wisdom with approachability. Even the winged bulls of Assyria, part livestock, part storm, embody the intersection of earthly labor and celestial might. In stitching together disparate creatures, our ancestors revealed a profound truth. The boundaries we draw between species are as porous as the myths we spin to explain them. And as we'll soon see, these hybrids aren't confined to ancient scrolls, they're alive in the DNA of our modern monsters, our superheroes, and even our corporate logos. The animals never left, they just learned new disguises. At the crossroads of myth and biology, where the impossible takes shape, the griffin stands sentinel, its lion's body rooted in earthly power, its eagle's wings slicing through the heavens. This chimera of Greek lore wasn't just a fanciful mashup, it was a geopolitical cipher. Some scholars trace its origins to Scythian gold miners, who stumbled upon Protoceratops fossils in the Gobi Desert and imagined a creature guarding hoards of treasure. Others argue it emerged from trade routes, where Persian lion motifs collided with Eurasian eagle symbolism, birthing a hybrid that symbolized the unbreakable union of strength and vigilance. But the griffin's legacy didn't stop at borders. In medieval Europe, it morphed into a Christological emblem, its dual nature reflecting the divine and mortal union of Jesus, proof that even the wildest hybrids could be tamed into theology. Then there's the Sphinx, crouching at the edge of the Egyptian desert with its riddles sharper than its claws. Unlike the griffin's protective stance, the Sphinx was an intellectual predator, its human head and lion's body embodying the tension between reason and instinct. The Greek version at Thebes famously throttled travelers who couldn't answer its questions, while its Egyptian counterpart, with its pharaonic headdress, served as a silent guardian of pyramids. Was this split personality a result of cultural diffusion, or did two civilizations independently stumble upon the same metaphor for the mind's dominion over primal forces? Venture east to Persia, and the Simurgh soars into view, a peacock-tailed, dog-headed marvel whose feathers could heal the sick. This creature wasn't just a guardian, it was a cosmic librarian, said to live 1700 years before immolating itself in flames, only to rise anew. Its cyclical rebirth mirrors the Chinese Feng Huang, a phoenix-like being of 5 colors, each hue representing a virtue: justice, propriety, benevolence, sincerity, and wisdom. Together, these hybrids weren't just decorative, they were moral compasses, their anatomies diagramming ideals too complex for human language alone. What unites these creatures across time and terrain? Look closer and a pattern emerges. Griffins often flanked thrones and temple gates, literal and figurative thresholds. Sphinxes tested the worthiness of those seeking passage. Even the Simurgh's feathers were believed to unlock doors between worlds. These hybrids weren't just fantastical, they were existential bouncers, policing the boundaries between known and unknown, mortal and divine. Yet their decline tells another story. As empires secularized, the griffin shrank into heraldry, the Sphinx became a tourist attraction, the Feng Huang a festival decoration. The Simurgh's fiery rebirth faded into Sufi poetry, still beautiful, but stripped of its sacred weight. This shift wasn't just about changing beliefs, it mirrored humanity's fracturing relationship with nature. When animals ceased to be seen as vessels of the divine, hybrids lost their power. The wild became something to conquer, not commune with, but perhaps their whispers linger. In modern fantasy, from Harry Potter's hippogriffs to Game of Thrones' dragons, we still crave creatures that defy categories. Maybe, deep down, we miss the old magic. The world where a lion's roar could shake the stars and an eagle's cry carried prayers to the gods. The hybrids are gone, but the longing remains, and somewhere in that longing lies a question. Did we stop believing in these creatures because we outgrew them, or because we forgot how to listen? Now, as the last echoes of animal worship fade into history, another chapter waits where the sacred and the scientific collide, and the line between myth and biology blurs once more. The golden statues of animal gods didn't crumble overnight. Their fall began with a whisper, the slow shift from many voices to one. As monotheism swept across continents, the divine menagerie shrank. Yahweh's commandment against graven images didn't just banish idols, it severed the sacred thread between humanity and beasts. No longer were lions the earthly avatars of gods, they became mere creatures, their roars stripped of celestial echo. Christianity's Archangel Michael trampling the serpent wasn't just a victory over evil, it was a theological demotion, reducing the once revered snake to a villain in a cosmic drama. Even Islam's prohibition of animal imagery in sacred spaces subtly erased their spiritual stature. The message was clear: divinity had a human face now, and the animals were left to wander the wilderness of metaphor. Yet in the shadow of cathedrals, old instincts lingered. Medieval bestiaries, those illuminated manuscripts where whales were mistaken for islands and barnacle geese, supposedly sprouted from driftwood, kept the flame of wonder flickering. These weren't just fanciful field guides, they were last-ditch efforts to preserve mystery in a world increasingly passed by scripture. A unicorn resting its head in a virgin's lap wasn't mere fantasy. It was Christological allegory, a desperate attempt to baptize pagan awe into Christian terms. But the cracks were showing when a 13th century monk painstakingly sketched a crocodile with dragon's wings. He wasn't documenting nature, he was stitching together fragments of a fading worldview where animals still held secrets too profound for textbooks. Then came the hammer blow, Darwin's Origin of Species. Evolution didn't just dethrone humanity from the center of creation, it reduced all creatures to equations of survival. The jaguar was no longer Tepiolotl's earthly form, just a predator with superior dentition. Ravens ceased to be Odin's spies, their intelligence now neatly explained by synaptic density. Science, for all its gifts, rendered the sacred fauna mundane, their mythic roles replaced by taxonomic charts. Industrialization finished the job, turning forests into factories and wolves into pests. The same London streets where medieval peasants once whispered of werewolves now echoed with the clatter of steam engines, drowning out the old stories. Colonialism accelerated this erasure with brutal efficiency. When Spanish priests burned Mayan codices, they weren't just destroying books, they were silencing the howler monkey's divine narratives. British hunters shooting Bengal tigers weren't merely claiming trophies, they were dismantling a cosmology where the striped predator was Durga's mount. Indigenous children forced into residential schools were taught that their animal clans were childish superstitions, not living lineages. The result: a global flattening where the buffalo's sacred charge gave way to cattle ranches, and the rainbow serpent's rivers were dammed for hydroelectric projects. But pockets of resistance glimmer. In India, trucks still brake for cows lounging on highways, their sacred status enshrined in law and collective memory. Japan's fox shrines draw millions, their red torii gates standing defiant against Tokyo's skyscrapers. The Maori's legal battles to protect taniwha habitats prove that some bridges between myth and modernity remain unbroken. Even Western science is reluctantly rediscovering what shamans always knew: that wolves regulate ecosystems, that ravens solve puzzles rivaling primates, that octopuses dream in color. The real question isn't whether we can reclaim this lost respect, but whether we can afford not to. As climate change tightens its grip, the ecological wisdom encoded in these ancient beliefs, the Inuits' deference to seal spirits, the Cherokee's prohibition against overhunting, feels less like superstition and more like survival manual. Perhaps the next chapter won't be written in temples or labs, but in the uneasy truce between them, where a humpback whale's song is both sonar data and ancestral hymn, where a wildfire-scorched forest demands both hydrologists and Hopi rain dancers. The animals never stopped speaking. We might just be ready to hear them again. Look at the roaring lion emblem of MGM Studios, the swooping hawk on your favorite sports jersey, or the sleek panther silhouette on a luxury car. These aren't just logos. They're the modern descendants of ancient totems, stripped of sacred context but still pulsing with primal power. When a football team names itself the Eagles or a brand adopts a wolf as its mascot, they're tapping into the same symbolic resonance that once made these creatures divine. The difference: where ancestors saw the eagle as a literal messenger to the gods, we now use it to signify speed, freedom, or competitive dominance. The instinct remains, the mythology has just been repackaged. Disney's animated pantheon takes this a step further, dressing animals in human traits like tailored suits. Simba isn't just a lion, he's a Shakespearean prince with a mane. Maui from Mona shifts from demigod to shape-shifting trickster, his tattooed menagerie whispering of Polynesian Omakua traditions. But here's the twist: by anthropomorphizing these creatures, we haven't erased their magic, we've democratized it. A child who bonds with a talking raccoon in a movie might grow into an adult fighting to protect real forests. Eco-spirituality movements like rewilding or bird language workshops aren't revivalist fads. They're the subconscious return of that old covenant between species, dressed in scientific jargon but fueled by the same awe. Now trace your fingers over the ink on someone's arm, a koi fish swimming upstream, a wolf howling at a moon they'll never reach. Tattoos have become the contemporary equivalent of clan markings, personal totems etched into skin instead of carved into wood. In the Pacific Northwest, indigenous artists still raise new totem poles, their chisels turning cedar into narratives where orcas carry ancestral memories and ravens steal the sunlight. These aren't museum relics, They're living stories, each curve of the wood a rebuttal to the idea that animal symbolism is obsolete. Even conservation efforts carry echoes of sacred stewardship. When biologists fight to save the last Javan rhinos or reintroduce wolves to Yellowstone, they're not just preserving biodiversity, they're honoring a debt older than science. The Lakota didn't pray to the buffalo because it was useful. They recognized a cosmic reciprocity. Modern environmentalists speak of keystone species and ecological balance, but the underlying principle mirrors the ancient belief: some creatures hold worlds together. So do we still need animal symbols? Neuroscience suggests we might be wired for them. Studies show humans process animal imagery faster than abstract shapes. Our brains light up at the sight of a stag's silhouette as if it's a language we've always known. Maybe that's why SpaceX named its spacecraft after a mythical falcon, or why tech CEOs obsess over alpha wolf leadership myths. The symbols persist because they speak to something deeper than logic. Yet science now offers its own lens. Ethology reveals dolphins with individual names, elephants that mourn their dead, crows that fashion tools, behaviors that blur the line between instinct and culture. Suddenly, the old tales of talking animals don't seem so fantastical. As we edge into the next segment, consider this. Perhaps biology isn't dismantling mythology, but proving it. The sacred fauna never left. We're just learning to decode their stories in a new tongue. Wolves don't just howl, they harmonize. Ethologists studying wild packs discovered something astonishing. When a chorus of wolves joins in song, they don't simply repeat the same note. Each member adjusts their pitch to create a unified sound, a vocal fingerprint unique to their pack. This isn't random noise, it's a calculated display of social cohesion, a sonic tapestry weaving individual voices into collective strength. No wonder ancient cultures from Rome to the Great Plains spun myths of wolves as paragons of loyalty. Science now confirms what intuition long whispered, that these predators embody the very traits humans aspire to: cooperation, communication, and unwavering family bonds. The wolf's haunting chorus isn't just biology, it's a mirror reflecting our deepest social ideals. But why do wolves, or any animals, resonate so profoundly with us? Enter biophilia, the hypothesis that humans possess an innate affinity for living systems. Harvard biologist E.O. Wilson argued that our brains evolved in nature's classroom, hardwired to find meaning in the flicker of a bird's wing or the ripple of a predator's muscle. MRI scans reveal that viewing images of majestic animals like eagles or tigers triggers the same neural networks activated by awe-inspiring art or music. This isn't just admiration, it's a primal dialogue, a vestigial language older than words. When the Navajo speak of wolf as a teacher or the Norse revere Odin's ravens, they're not personifying animals, they're recognizing an ancient kinship coded into our DNA. Predators, in particular, carved grooves into our collective psyche. Evolutionary psychologists trace our visceral reaction to sharp teeth and slit pupils back to the Pleistocene, when early humans balanced between hunter and hunted. The amygdala, our brain's fear center, still fires like a klaxon at the sight of coiled snakes or stalking felines, even in cushy modern settings. Yet this fear dances with fascination. The same adrenaline that once prepared us to flee now fuels our obsession with shark documentaries and tiger selfies. Mythology's ambivalent portrayal of predators as both destroyers and guardians mirrors this neural tug of war. The Egyptian goddess Sekhmet could slaughter thousands with her lioness fury, yet her same claws nursed the pharaohs. Science explains the fear, myth gives it meaning. Now consider the placebo effect wearing fur. Hospital studies show pediatric patients with therapy dogs require fewer pain medications. veterans with PTSD experience reduced flashbacks when partnered with service animals. These aren't just warm fuzzies, they're measurable shifts in cortisol levels and neural activity. When a therapy horse nuzzles an autistic child or a cat purrs against a grieving widow's lap, they're not just offering comfort, they're triggering biological responses older than medicine itself. Modern science calls this interspecies bonding. Our ancestors called it magic. So can lab coats and legends coexist? A groundbreaking study at the University of Cambridge suggests yes. Researchers found that indigenous communities from Siberian reindeer, herders to Aboriginal trackers, consistently identify animal behaviors modern ethology later confirms. Their myths about migratory patterns or predator tactics often prove empirically accurate, distilled through generations of observation. The Maori's reverence for dolphin intelligence predates marine biology's discovery of cetacean language by centuries. Perhaps the divide between science and symbolism was always artificial, two dialects of the same truth. This convergence invites a radical question. What if your spirit animal isn't just a metaphor? Psychological studies reveal people consistently draw personal strength from animals that embody traits they admire or lack. A shy person might meditate on the boldness of a lion. An impulsive soul might reflect on the owl's patience. Unlike ancient cultures bound by clan totems, modernity grants us the privilege of choice to curate our own symbolic menagerie. The wolf's loyalty, the eagle's vision, the octopus's adaptability, these become psychological tools, archetypes we consciously wield. The takeaway isn't that science debunks myth, but that it often validates it just in a different lexicon. When a biologist describes wolf pack dynamics or a neuroscientist maps or responses, they're charting the same territories shamans once navigated with drumbeats and visions. The animals haven't changed, only our way of listening has, and as we'll soon see, this dialogue between data and intuition is rewriting conservation, therapy, even urban design, proving that the oldest stories still have teeth. Perhaps you've felt it, a flicker of recognition when a hawk circles overhead or a deer pauses to lock eyes with you in the woods. Maybe a particular creature stalks your dreams, its presence lingering long after you wake. These aren't coincidences, they could be whispers from your animal totem, a spiritual ally waiting to be acknowledged. Unlike ancient cultures born into clans with predetermined guides, modern seekers must navigate this path consciously, but the signs are everywhere if you know how to read them. Start with dreams where the subconscious speaks in symbols. A wolf appearing in your nightmares might signal untapped resilience, while a spider weaving its web could reflect your own creativity taking shape. Keep a journal by your bed, note every detail, from the color of the animal's fur to the emotions it stirs. Over time, patterns emerge. That recurring owl isn't just a random dream cameo. Its nocturnal wisdom might mirror your own intuitive gifts, or its silent flight could hint at the need for discretion in your waking life. Meditation offers another doorway. Visualize a forest path or a vast plain and invite your totem to reveal itself. Don't force expectations. Your guide might be a humble rabbit instead of the majestic eagle you imagined. The key is receptivity. One practitioner described meeting a scarab beetle in meditation, its iridescent shell reflecting fragmented light until she realized it mirrored her own scattered focus. The scarab became her touchstone for grounding. Nature remains the most visceral teacher. Pay attention to animals that cross your path unusually, a fox darting across your morning commute, a heron standing sentinel at your favorite pond. Folklore suggests these encounters are anything but random. The Celts believed such meetings carried omens. The creature's behavior holds clues. A jay's raucous cry might nudge you to speak your truth, while a turtle's deliberate pace could signal the need for patience. Carl Jung's archetypes deepen this exploration. The animal animus in his work represents primal instincts and untapped potential. Your totem often embodies traits you're being called to integrate, perhaps the adaptability of a coyote or the fierce boundaries of a honey badger. Analyze your totem's natural behaviors. How does it hunt, survive, communicate? These aren't just biological facts, they're metaphors for your own growth. Yet tread carefully. Not every animal connection is a totem. A childhood love of dolphins doesn't necessarily make them your spiritual guide. True totems assert themselves persistently, often during life's transitions. And critically, avoid appropriating closed traditions. Smudging with white sage to invoke a Native American spirit animal reduces sacred practices to aesthetics. Instead, research your own ancestry's animal lore or explore universal archetypes respectfully. So what does your totem reveal? A crow might reflect your knack for finding opportunity in chaos, while a bear could signify a dormant period before rebirth. These creatures aren't just mirrors, they're maps. The dragonfly's metamorphosis from water to air might parallel your own career shift, or the octopus's camouflage could speak to your emotional resilience. The deeper you listen, the louder they guide. As we near the end of this journey, remember, these ancient bonds were never truly broken. Whether through a hawk's cry or a dreamt serpent's coil, the animals keep speaking, not as symbols of a lost world, but as living allies in ours. The final chapter awaits, where all these threads weave into a revelation as timeless as the first human footprint beside a wolf's. From the first handprints pressed beside wolf tracks in prehistoric caves to the last emperor who wore a jade serpent crown, humanity's bond with sacred fauna was never just about worship, it was a lifeline. These creatures anchored us to the cosmos, their instincts mapping the rhythms of stars and seasons long before telescopes or calendars. The lion's roar wasn't just a sound, it was the pulse of kingship, echoing from the Mesopotamian steppes to the Maasai savanna. The spider's web wasn't merely silk, it was Anansi's blueprint for storytelling itself. Every myth, every ritual, every carved totem whispered the same truth. Animals were our first teachers, showing us how to hunt without waste, heal with herbs, and read the language of storms in a bird's flight. But these stories did more than explain nature, they sculpted morality. The Cherokee tale of the greedy bear who lost his tail taught fairness. The Norse wolf Fenrir, bound by unbreakable chains, warned of unchecked ambition. Even the humble scarab rolling its dung ball mirrored the Egyptian belief in perseverance turning decay into rebirth. These weren't bedtime fables, they were ethical operating systems coded in feathers and fur. When a Zuni elder invoked the Badger clan's courage or a samurai painted cranes on his banner, they weren't borrowing traits, they were aligning with forces greater than themselves. Now, as glaciers melt and forests vanish, that ancient dialogue feels urgent again. Indigenous communities fighting to protect salmon rivers or wolf habitats aren't just conserving species, they're defending living libraries of ecological wisdom. Modern science confirms what totems knew. Beavers engineer wetlands that buffer droughts, whales' songs regulate ocean nutrients, even ravens' caching habits reforest landscapes. The Hopi prophecy rings stark now. When the animals are gone, humans will die of loneliness. So how do we listen? Start by relearning the language. Track the red-tailed hawk's migration not just as data points, but as a celestial compass. See the urban fox not as a pest, but as a reminder of wild resilience. Support conservation efforts that partner with indigenous stewards, from Maori whale sanctuaries to Lakota buffalo rewilding. And when you spot a crow tilting its head to study you, remember, it's not just a bird, it's Odin's eyes, the Morrigan's messenger, a shapeshifter who's outlived empires. The wolves and ravens are still teaching. The question is whether we'll heed them before the myths become memorials. Drop your favorite animal myth in the comments. Was it the cunning kitsune, the wise owl of Athena, or perhaps a personal encounter that felt like a totem's nudge? And if you felt that flicker of connection when an animal crossed your path, hit subscribe. History's mysteries aren't just buried in ruins, they're breathing beside us, waiting to be remembered.